now would be a good time to leave. All right, so we're going to get started. Our Tallan, it's a joint presentation with Tallan and Microsoft, and it's called the DPI30 Modern Data Platform in 30 Days. Today, I will be presenting. My name is Dan Fluitt, alongside Justin Breland from Microsoft's Solution Assessment Team. So we're going to jump right into it here with the agenda, and we're going to start out with some welcome and introductions. The DPI30 program, what is it and why should you care about it? That's the next part is going to be who is Tallan? And then we're going to go through the basics of a DPI30 engagement with manufacturing client success stories. And then we'll end it up with the closing and question and answers. As I said before, my name is Dan Fluitt. I'm the Vice President of Sales here at Tallan, and alongside me is Justin Breland, who is on the Solution Assessment Team at Microsoft. So Justin, I'm going to turn it over to you for the DPI30 engagement.
Fantastic. I appreciate it, Dan. And yeah, good to have you guys today, and appreciate you taking some time out of your busy weeks and mornings to join us. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of set the stage from a Microsoft perspective on kind of what the DPI30 engagement is at a high level. How we kind of go about doing this work, some of the outcomes we're looking for, and then ultimately what we're going to look at is we're going to have Tallan kind of drill down and say, hey, here's what this looks like in real life as we've done a number of these engagements over the years. So a really quick introduction. I've been with Microsoft for about 10 years now, and for the last couple of years, I've worked inside of the Solution Assessment Program at Microsoft. So in a nutshell, what our organization does is work with customers and help to broker the right partner relationships to help customers that are somewhere on a modernization, transformation, or optimization kind of journey, right? Those are all the things that we're after, and those span things from data center modernization to application innovation, and all the way out to data platform, which is really like it's a big transformational initiative that we're able to help our customers with. So this engagement in particular is kind of what it sounds like, right? Data platform in 30 days. We'll say that 30 days maybe extends out to 45 sometimes. But what we're trying to do is bring some value through a fully funded engagement to our customers that's helping to solve some common problems, some common challenges that our customers run into, right? So things like, hey, we have disparate or non-centralized data sources. We have an outdated data platform, and we understand that data insights are available to us, but we can't really get at them, right? So inside of this engagement, it kind of works in three big phases. What we're looking to do is to first engage with a customer to do some things that through some workshop and discovery and a consultative type engagement, to say, hey, let's kind of drill in and let's map out a couple of business scenarios that we might be able to tackle together inside of this 4-week time frame, to try to bring something that's functioning, that's scalable, and is going to create long-term sustainable business value using the data that you have today, right? And really leveraging that to its best ability. So how do we do that? Or kind of what comes out of it, I guess, is after we go through that discovery, ultimately what we're looking to get at is to provide a solution by establishing an Azure landing zone and using Azure Data Services and analytics to really lay out a roadmap for future readiness, so that you can scale and kind of snap in additional data services, so that you can iterate beyond that 30-day period as you roll out into production. So in addition to this, we're also looking to create a solution that allows for some automation using the tools that are available in ADS. So that's kind of always a flag that we're putting out in front of us as a target for this. So what's an outcome? What are kind of the deliverables look like? One thing that I would say that I love about Tallan is this engagement it's kind of broad, right? All the implications of how we can transform data and use a modern data platform scenario. I would say that Tallan is fantastic in coming in and say, hey, we want to do things that we've learned from in the past, but also all of our customers have unique needs, and we really need to understand that and get better every day. And that's one of the things I love is that challenge that Tallan has for themselves of, hey, how can we do this even better tomorrow? And I've loved seeing that over the years. So all that said, what comes out of this is going to be the facilitated workshops to kind of help discover the art of the possible. You're going to come away with an Azure service and architecture design recommendations. Again, that's iterative, right? Also, a big thing for this is, although there's no cost associated with the actual engagement itself, one of the things that we're hoping for is, hey, we're going to roll this out in production. We're going to implement this as soon as possible. So what is the consumption cost going to look like for that? Let's not surprise us as we roll this out. Let's have a really firm idea of what this looks like as we scale it out. And by the way, how do we do the right cost control as we do kind of expand that? Lastly, the fully provisioned landing zone underpinned with ADS supporting those scenarios that we talked about earlier. So I think we're going to talk more about how we kind of get started and get rolling with this. But the short answer is you guys are engaged with folks right now today through your Microsoft team, through the Tallan team to ask about the data platform engagement. We're going to have some leave behinds for you, but really we'll qualify it together, make sure that it aligns well. And then someone like myself will advocate for you inside of Microsoft and go after that funding so that we can get this project started. So I think that kind of tees us up the right way. Dan, anything else that I missed there you'd like me to add? All right. Okay. You're talking on mute, but I got the affirmation there. So again,
You
thank you
nailed it.
guys. Look forward to hearing more. Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, so now I'm going to go through and explain our DPI30 process. And we've really tried to make this very simple. And as Justin said, it's called DPI30, but usually it goes about 30, 45 days. And we try and keep it real simple. 3 phases of analysis and design, deploying the solution, and then the transition over to you, the customer. And the last one is very, very important because a lot of times when we go and help customers in their cloud journey and their data platform journey, they might have had somebody help them before. And they said, we have this, we have it up and running. We're not quite sure if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And, we don't really know what's going on. And we see time and time again with a lot of our competitors is they never do that last step to operationalize it and bring it over to transition it to the customer. And so the way that we work with customers is we have a lot of customers that will do the analysis and design, we'll deploy the solution, transition it over, and they say, hey, this looks great, we'll keep going with it. And then we'll do the same things and transition it to the customer, and they say, hey, we want to keep going. We know how to do these things, but we need help with these other things. So we work in conjunction with our customers and to bring them on to phase 4, phase 5, phase 6. And then we have other customers that go, this thing looks great. Can you do these next 10 things for us? So we can work in any sort of capacity, but we really want to make sure that you understand what you have at the end of the day here. So as I said before, the first thing is the analysis and design, and we'll kick off the project, make sure that we have the logistics, make sure that we have the Azure tenant set up correctly. And one of the other things that usually goes along with the DPI30 is a Ready Govern workshop where we'll do a once over on your Azure environment and make sure that we're starting with the solid foundation so that you can build from there. We'll go over the reference architecture for a lot of the ADS projects that we do. As Justin said, every customer is different in that their problems that they're trying to solve are different. Most of the time, the reference architecture that we have can be tweaked just a little bit, but for the most part, it's same, it's tried and true, and it's a great foundation to start off on. And the other piece that we're always going to want to do is review what you have for your current architecture. Sometimes people don't have a data state at all. Sometimes, as Justin said, they're really outdated. We want to review what you have and make sure that if there are shortcomings in there, they're addressed in this DPI 30 engagement. And then we'll go through whiteboarding sessions to pick out some use cases of real data sources, real business problems that you have, and whiteboard those through all the way from consumption to reporting. So I'm going to jump into the first client story that we have. We've done a DPI 30, and there's a company that is Midrex, and they're located here in North Carolina in the United States, but they build mining plants all over the world, and they provide dependable, clean source of iron to produce high-grade steel with low emissions. One of the things that they have a bunch of different disparate data sources. And when we were talking to them, they were like, well, we really can't get insights to this. And they were like, only if we could do this, only if we could take data from here and mash it with data from here, and then take this other ERP data and put that in there, that would give us a real view of our business and how we could improve. So that was what we did with Midrex, is we took a couple of disparate data sources, fed it all into the data lake, and did all the processing, the curating of the data. And then on the end of it, they were like, wow, it was they didn't really want to say it was that easy, but they were able to, within 30 to 45 days, have insights into something that just wasn't possible before. And they said, before the cloud, we couldn't have done this, because if we bought all the hardware and it just didn't work, it wouldn't have been worth it for us. So doing this DPI 30, it was sort of a proof of concept for them. And it was something that they were going into it saying, if this doesn't work, we didn't spend all kinds of money on hardware. We didn't spend all kinds of money on like the SQL Server software and all the different things. And they said, if it doesn't work, then we can take it a different direction. And it wasn't costing them a ton of upfront costs. So they were able to, within 30 days, get some real meaty reports that they were able to show their upper management, and upper management gave the green light and said, hey, let's keep going on this. I think that we have something that is providing fantastic insights for us. So it was something that was a proof of concept that they just never thought they could do that quick. And now we're on to building, I think that we're up to about 6 or 7 different data sources with them, and they probably have 50 to 60 reports that they never had before. So a lot of people will say, what does the modern data state architecture look like? And we have a Visio here of just kind of what the reference architecture for a modern data state will look like. And this is something that is built out. Maybe we went through the 1 through 3 phases. This is something of what it would look like probably after phase 4, phase 5. You're getting in many different data sources, line of business data sources. You can do logs, streams. There's some companies that are streaming log files to look at, application performance. There's some that are streaming in data from SCADA devices to look at flows and different things, and flowing in data from the manufacturing floors. All kinds of different data stuff that can be pulled in. From there, it can go through either Azure Data Lake, Azure Data Factory. It can go through Databricks, go into Azure Data Lake storage. From then, be processed through Synapse Analytics, and then after the Synapse Analytics process, we can pump it out to either Power BI reports or other business applications that are looking to use this data. So it's not always just hey, let's put some data in the front end and then have a report come out the back end. A lot of times this data is feeding reports, but it's also feeding other business critical applications. So the next slide here is a pared down version of what the sample DPI30 architecture would look like. Most of the time, we're picking 1 to 3 data sources. So we'll have a data source fed through Azure Data Factory, stored in Azure Data Lake, run it through its processes in Synapse. Sometimes we use Databricks, sometimes we don't, depending on the customer, and then kick it out to a Power BI report. And this is the one thing that we've seen in this is it puts all of the pieces of the architecture to their puts them through their paces, and everybody can see that the data goes in one side, it gets stored, and goes through Data Factory, gets stored in the data lake. We can do some analytics with Synapse, and then we can produce a Power BI report. And from there, a lot of our customers are like, great, we see it working end to end. We see all of the pieces in there. We see how they interact. Now let's keep building on it. So we try and keep the DPI30 architecture a little bit more simple, just because we only have the 30 days, and we want to make sure that we have something come out that's useful and that will make the leadership of any organization say, yes, we want to keep going. If you tried to do the one that we had before right up front, it kind of muddies the water a little bit. So we like to start simple, iterate on it, and then get more complex from there. So the next thing, the next slide that we have here is a sample of some of the data flows that we have. Data sources go in through ingestion, through Data Factory, Databricks, storage. We're using Azure Data Lake storage. We go through preparation, transformation, and then the data is able to be shown in Power BI reports. Kick it out to the data scientists that are doing their stuff in R, or kick it out to any sort of applications that are out there. So that's all curated data that is ready to be consumed by end users. And a lot of the things that we're showing here is part of the documentation that we provide as the user turnover at the end of the engagement. So the next step in the DPI30 is actually deploying the solution. And as I said before, when we went through the design, we're going to show you a lot of things that were in those last couple of slides. We're going to look at it and say, hey, we're going to probably use Data Lake, we're going to use Data Factory, we're going to use Synapse, we're going to do some Power BI reports. So all of that part is documented, and then it is deployed out for the Azure landing zone. And when a lot of people ask is, what are you talking about when we say an Azure landing zone? And this is nothing more than the Azure environment for the Azure data services. We're making sure that the environment has connectivity to get to the data sources that it needs to pull data from. We're making sure that the Azure environment that we're going to deploy to is secure, is kind of adheres to the best practices. And then what we've seen with a lot of our customers in the last 5 to 7 years is once we have this Azure landing zone set up, they have confidence to keep building on it. And they don't get a lot of that. Yeah, it's out there. We don't know if it's secure. We don't really know what's going on out there. When we have this landing zone out there, it's ready to use, it's secure, and everybody can start to build on top of it. And the landing zone, this one is a landing zone for the DPI30 engagement. But since we're taking a once over of your whole Azure environment, you can go and put virtual machines out there. You can go and put platform services out there. Start to do, like, if you had a .NET application that you wanted to start to try and move to platform services, that landing zone is out there and it's ready to do just about anything that you're ready to do. So our DPI30 approach, when we talk about our approach for DPI30, this is really the Tallan approach, Tallan methodology to any sort of project that we have. And it adheres or aligns a lot to the Microsoft's cloud adoption framework. We always like to start out with a vision and a roadmap and a proof of concept. That's making sure that we understand where our customers are looking to go, and that our customers understand what the cloud journey is like. We always talk about, we look at an as-is architecture, we look at a to-be architecture, and we look at a plan to get there. And what we see in that is when our customers show us their as-is architecture, it gives our customers a warm, fuzzy feeling that we understand what they have. When we give them a to-be architecture, that shows us that our customers understand the cloud journey and the roadmap that we're building out. And that gives us the warm fuzzy that you understand where we're taking it. In the plan to get there, that's just a collaboration of us and our customers of saying, hey, here's where we are, here's where we want to be, here's how we're going to get there. And then from there, we'll build out the proof of concept and the foundation. And this is what we're talking about with the Azure landing zone, is having that solid foundation so we can build on top of it. And then put out a minimum viable product. And the minimum viable product right here in this thing is your one data source or 3 data sources for the DPI30 engagement. From there, we know that it's built solid. And if there is something that went wrong, we're not 10 data sources down the road and have to make all kinds of adjustments. We do small iterations, improve and fix things so that the next iteration around, we don't make the same mistakes over and over again. And then the last part that we find that I was talking about before that we find really important is operationalizing the environment. I can't tell you how many times that we get to somewhere and they say, you know what, we knew how to do all this stuff on-prem, we knew how to monitor, we knew how to back up, we knew how all of that stuff, we knew disaster recovery, but now with the cloud, we just got it out there and it's running, and I don't think we have all of that. So one of the things that we want to do is operationalize it, make sure that the correct governance is in place and enabled so that you can keep building, but these governance guardrails are going to be in place so that you kind of, if you get too far off the highway, you kind of hit the guardrail and bump back to the middle. And then in terms of operationalizing it, if we are putting this DPI30 into production, which almost all of our customers are doing, we want to make sure that it's monitored. We want to make sure it's backed up. We want to make sure that if we're providing business critical reporting and data, that it can be restored if something bad happens. So this last piece is something that a lot of people kind of forget about in the first iteration. And we want to make sure that we do operationalize it, because it's the same thing as if we make a mistake or overlooked something, it's much easier to fix on the next iteration with the next data source and next set of reports, rather than having 50 reports out there and then go, oh man, we really need to do this. We have to go back and change all kinds of stuff. So the next client story that we're going to talk through is Applied Industrial Technologies. And this is a company that I'm sure many people worked with companies like this. They're growing through acquisitions all the time. So each acquisition has an expanded data footprint. And whenever somebody new comes in, they say, all right, we need to pull in all of these people's data now. Not only do we need to pull in the users and make them part of our company, we need to pull in all of their data that they've had for the last 10 years, and so on and so on. So with Applied Technologies, we were able to create a modern data estate for them and work out a solution that says, hey, when you get your next acquisition, we're going to start to ingest the data, and it's going to go through all of these same pipelines that we had before. And there's a kind of cookie cutter approach for their acquisitions now. And that was the one thing that they were really looking for, is the single source of truth for data. They had some stuff from, company A that they acquired. They had some stuff from company B. They had their own stuff that was already there. And there was a whole bunch of creating of reports and then mashing data together in Excel. When they were able to start to pull it all into the data factory, into the data lake, then they had the single source of truth for reporting. So this one was very much a proof, not so much as a proof of concept, but a proof of concept of how can we do acquisitions better, and how can we improve our data reporting once these companies are acquired. So as we said before, the architecture is still the same on these things, but the business case that they had was very different. But the data flow and the modern data state architecture is all the same, and we were able to help them with their acquisition process. Now, the last part that we're going to talk about is the transition to the customer. And so this is something that is very important to us, very important to you, and very important to Microsoft. So when we have the transition to the customer, we get and collect all the deliverables, all of the, the diagrams that we built, all of the design sessions we had. And then there is a presentation to the executive sponsors of the DPI30 engagement. And that involves Tallan, that involves a customer, and that involves Microsoft. And what we're trying to accomplish here is make sure that we did hit the nail on the head and discuss, hey, this is what we talked about doing. This is what we presented to you. Here's the reports. You see the data coming in. The executive level can see the reports coming out the other side. And then we start to talk about next steps of, like, if this really was successful, what can we do to keep building on it? So one of the big things that people always ask is, when we do this DPI30 engagement, it's funded by Microsoft. Who has to pay for the Azure charges? And this is something that our customers, since it's going to be running in your Azure environment, it is your responsibility to pay the Azure cost for it. So one of the first questions we get all the time is, how much does this DPI30 start to cost us in Azure each month? And so when we do out the reference architecture and the design, we will provide a sample cost estimate of, here's what it's going to look like when we deploy the solution. Here's what it's going to look like month over month. So this is one of the big things that gets asked all the time. So we made a special slide for it. But we will go through and try and optimize the costs all the time, and provide all the questions that you have for the engagement. So the last client story that we're going to talk about is a company up in Massachusetts called Abiomed. And this is a very, very interesting project in that Abiomed manufactures heart pumps that get inserted into your body. Say if you had some sort of surgery and your heart wasn't quite pumping as good as it should, and your heart needed a little bit of help, they have a heart pump that gets inserted into your femoral artery up into your heart that will help pump the blood through your system while you're recovering after a traumatic injury or surgery. So Abiomed wanted to be able to live monitor these pumps as they were inserted into patients around the world. And so what we had done for them, this was a bit of a DPI30 engagement. This was part of an IoT engagement that they had the pumps and the things bedside that was feeding data back to Abiomed's cloud to be able to report on the pump activity. And it wasn't as much about the patient. It was more of, how is this pump performing? And if there was something going wrong with the pump, Abiomed had their kind of network operations center that's live monitoring these pumps that are inserted into people. And they're in constant contact with the doctors in the hospital saying, the pump looks like it's doing well. The pump is starting to slow down now, and the patient's heart is really starting to take over. So I think it's almost time to remove it. It was very, very, very interesting project. And then after that, they said, hey, now let's take all of this pump data and then start to analyze it so that we can have better outcomes for our patients. And as we start to get more and more data of how the pumps are working and how fast your heart is improving, we can draw insights on there. So this was something that was, the DPI30 was a piece of a very much larger engagement. So when Justin was talking about at the beginning of having it fully funded, there's a lot of our customers that say, hey, we know what we want to do. We want to do, a big project like this. Can we use a DPI 30 to help assist in the cost of this project? And that's exactly what we did with Abiomed. We used the DPI 30 program. We used some other funding programs. Abiomed kicked in a bunch of money, and since it was so interesting to us, Tallan had kicked in some money to make this real. And so that's the types of projects that we're looking for with these DPI 30 engagements, where we're looking for something that can be like kind of earth-shattering or disruptive for your customer environment, for your local environment, to do something that you've never been able to do before. And the one thing that I want to say about these DPI 30 engagements, there's a lot of times when you're sitting in a meeting and then somebody go, you know what, if we could only, or what if we could? And those are the types of projects that we really like to see in these DPI 30 engagements of, what if I could take in 12 different disparate data sources? What if this processing that we had that's now taking 17 hours, what if we could cut that down to, an hour? These are the types of things that are great for these DPI 30. What if I could? So with the power of the cloud and computing now, you can start to do things that you just couldn't do before that weren't economically feasible, or, just it didn't make sense to do. So with that, I will stop and see if anybody has any questions. You can unmute yourself and ask away. And it doesn't look like we had any questions into the chat. So Justin, do you have any closing comments here before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, I think that was really well covered, and I think Dan, you just probably scratched the surface on some of the really nice customer stories that we've seen out of this, and continue just to see this to be a really a growing trend in customers that are doing this work, and kind of like getting a real life tangible idea of what this looks like in their organization. And my favorite thing about this is that a lot of times the business units, are kind of working together with IT and coming and kind of asking for some of these solutions. So to get that sponsorship across the organization, that excitement certainly expands outside of just the IT group, and kind of it puts a showcase on the value that the IT team can bring forward into the business. So really look forward to the opportunity to do some of this work with you guys and with our customers, and appreciate you pulling this together today.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to wrap up our webinar today. Thank you, everybody, for attending. There will be people on the Tallan side reaching out for follow-up for the webinar. So please feel free, if you have any questions at all, you could shoot them on to myself or Justin, and we will be in contact shortly. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.